So I was recently on a podcast called the CuberCast Podcast. Starting the podcast recording. Basically, we talked about YouTube growth and video editing. I tried my best to share my knowledge. To be honest, I was a little bit nervous going into it because I don't usually go on interviews. I wanted to make this scripted, but at the same time, I wanted to be a conversation. So you'll just see, here are just some of the things that I said in the podcast that I think will help you as the viewer if you want to grow your YouTube channel, maybe know a little bit about YouTube itself and my video making process. So without further ado, let's go to the highlights.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the CuberCast Podcast, and today we have Maxwell Chan on the podcast, and yeah, thank you so much for coming on today, Max.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for having me.
Many people believe that to be good at editing, they would need a really top-of-the-line expensive video editor. What are your thoughts on this misconception?
You don't need the top-of-the-line editor to make good content, and I believe that you should max out your potential with the editor you currently have. Like, trying to work around, and if you see something in an editor that you may not be able to do in something like iMovie, for example, work around it and try to find a solution for it. As a more specific example, iMovie is restricting because it only allows you to have 2 video tracks at a time, but if you want to get 3 videos playing at a time, you could export 2 of them and then import that footage and then add another clip on top of that. Many people have worked their way up to getting to that editor, and they've maybe used something that is a little bit worse in the past, so it's not all about having the best thing in the beginning.
What tips do you have for any beginner editors, like software and what edits to use?
So I would recommend, if you have an Apple device, like everybody's mentioning now, iMovie is a great option. You can do it on your phone, your iPad, or Mac. If you have a PC or like a Windows device, I would go for DaVinci because it's free. Watch tutorials in the beginning. Go on YouTube and search a course. Like, that's what I did with Final Cut because I use Final Cut right now. I would go actually for a longer video to search for a tutorial rather than a shorter video. Although it's more time consuming, you'll really get more out of it because you'll learn more of the software, and just in case maybe there's a crash, maybe there's a setting that's taking up a lot of file storage on your computer, you might know how to solve the problem because you have watched the tutorial. Overall, don't worry about making your first video perfect. You'll have more opportunities to do it later on and expand your skills.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you, just like a quick plug, I think you have like a lot of tutorials, just sort of like editing things in general, like just motivational stuff.
Yeah, as Max said, your first video does not need to be perfect. People who know my first video, if you haven't seen it before, do not look it up. You will be very disappointed. My biggest tips for beginning editors is cut out pauses. You don't want to make it too choppy and make it sound like a robot, but cut out pauses because people don't want an empty space of 20 seconds.
Back to the thing about like cutting out pauses and all that. Sometimes in my videos, what I do is if you have a pause, then I use it as a sort of funny moment. One thing I'd like to think about in my videos is pacing, and sometimes you want your video to be really fast paced, but at the same time, slowing it down can really give a change of pace, but also entertain your viewers. Maybe not cutting out every single pause, but maybe leaving one here and there to maybe zoom in on yourself. And if there's a silent moment, sometimes I do that. Somebody who inspired me to do that was like Marquez Brownlee. I think he does that sometimes, where he like takes a deep breath, or he has a small pause when he's gathering his thoughts between sentences. He zooms in a bit, and that's something that I learned, and maybe you can incorporate in some of your videos too.
Alright, so how did you work on improving your editing just in general? So did you teach yourself, or did you explore the editor a little bit?
Yeah, so like I said before, I just looked at tutorials before. One thing is that I try to listen to the tutorials in 2 times speed, so I get it a bit faster, get the information in my head. I still comprehend it because I'm used to listening to it at that speed. I remember going through iMovie, every single setting, seeing what it would do. If it did something bad, I'd Control Z it and try it again, or see what it could do. I didn't know what keyframes were, so I had to look that up. And on YouTube, like I said before, being restricted in the beginning with iMovie allowed me to be more creative and problem solve rather than just being given an effect. Like in Final Cut now, there's so many effects on the side. I mean, it saves me a lot of time at the same time, but I don't know, something unique in iMovie that you can do to just, it's more unique when you just sort of make it by yourself instead of being given to you in Final Cut. So that's, I mean, I improved by just improvising and sort of figuring things out, especially in iMovie. As for managing YouTube, I usually do my work on my YouTube channel at night around 1 to 2 hours, depending on how much time I have. I try to finish my homework as fast as possible, but I always make sure school is my #1 priority. I'm my chem homework next, and then it's all good. But at the same time, cubing and YouTube are just hobbies, so don't stress if you can't get a video out or you can't get your cubing session in. So just make sure you have a good balance and know what is your top priority. Okay, new video just dropped, all good, everything's all good. Really glad that came out pretty well. I'm also filming this on a Friday, so that means I have a bit more time, don't have that much homework, probably less than half an hour I'd say. Other than that, I'm gonna try to get some exercise in, and I think I have some other things coming up.
So do you have any lesser known tips for growing on YouTube?
Yeah, so I have 2 of them that I can think of right now. One is to throw ideas at the wall sort of, and eventually they'll stick. You might have heard that. As for cubing YouTube channels, you can still stick to like basic unboxings and reviews, but at the same time, try your own editing style and it'll eventually work. You'll stand out. Like everybody says, be unique, because honestly, that is something a lot of people say, but at the same time be sort of misused a bit. Because like for my non-cubing channel, I take bits and pieces from other YouTube channels, other YouTubers styles. Like here's some YouTubers that I get inspired by, like Steezy Kane, Elliot Choi, Matt Duvella, maybe Think Media. Like some of them, Elliot's vlogging style I took into my non-cubing channel and I tried to mimic it. Those YouTubers, they're pretty popular on the platform, so if that's working in the YouTube algorithm, why not try putting it in a bit in my video that's working for them, and maybe my channel will gain some traction, because if I incorporate it, then it'll be hopefully the same for me.
Okay, so moving on to the last question, we have, what are your thoughts on spam upload channels?
Yeah, so I know there's a couple spam upload channels, especially in the cubing community, that have sort of popped off, but I sort of find it overwhelming, and you know, kind of makes the channel disorganized, because you have so many videos, and there's some channels that I'm subscribed to that do those spam uploads, and most of them don't even turn up in my notifications for YouTube. They lose their traction on their videos, like their view to subscriber ratio is going down. I mean, I would only make an exception if it was like a shorts channel and you'd be posting maybe like once a day, or like a clips channel, something like that. That would be if like they were adding that channel onto like their main channel, where they actually put effort into their content. So I don't think just having a spam upload channel as itself is a good idea. So I think it's too disorganized. Yeah, like I think you talked about this in like your first episode as well. It can take like 10 seconds to make a 10-second video, and then you just post it just like that. Then there's other people at the same time who maybe put like 10 hours into a video instead of 10 seconds, and they only get 10 views, and then that spam upload channel gets like 1,000. So it's based on the YouTube algorithm, but at the same time, you can't control that. I mean, just try to put the best you can into your content and try not to worry about all the noise that's happening around you. I'm sorry I sort of like messed up in the beginning a bit. Okay, see ya. Alright, just wrapped up. CuberCast Podcast, thank you so much for having me on. I had actually a really good conversation. I really appreciated it. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video. This is the end. Be sure to check out the full episode. I will leave it in the link in the description and down below. As always, comment, like, subscribe. Catch you guys in my next video. Peace. Okay, peace.